Now, I put something out on social media just prior to this game when I arrived at Anfield saying that this is probably the kindest fixtures of Liverpool's really, really tough run that they're on at the moment, but that football never kind of works that way, does it? The kind fixtures never always end up being the most straightforward ones. But I didn't really expect that I'd be proved so emphatically right in the way that I was today, with Liverpool just squeaking past relegation-threatened Wolves, a 2-1 victory in the end. And really the fans here inside Anfield, I'm sure everyone who's watching everywhere else, was put through the ringer a little bit. This was much, much trickier than I ever expected, really. I mean, a decent first half from Liverpool, you have to say, going 2-0 up, and at that point you're thinking, oh, well, actually this is kind of going to be straightforward. But I have to say, even in the first half, there's a few moments where I felt a little bit uncomfortable with how Liverpool were playing. A couple of moments where you felt Wolves were 1 or 2 passes away from maybe playing through them and making life really hard for them. And I think that discomfort kind of moved into the second half, and thinking if Liverpool can get the next goal, then that will absolutely wrap it up. It'll end all Wolves' belief. But of course, that third goal didn't kind of come, and then Wolves were just piling the pressure on in the second half, and magnificent performance from them in the second half, you have to say. But Liverpool, really, really poor, particularly for their standards. We're not used to seeing them dominated in that way, particularly at Anfield, really. And I think that the statistics kind of bear out how one-sided that second half was in Wolves' favour. I mean, they take 10 shots to Liverpool's 0, 3 of those shots on target to Liverpool's 0, of course, and they generate 1 expected goal to Liverpool's 0. So completely in control in the second half. As I say, relegation-threatened Wolves doing that at Anfield, you really kind of don't expect that. And there's no shot in the half of Liverpool. That's actually the first time that has ever happened in a half at Anfield for Liverpool since Opta's records began, which was the 2003-2004 season. So it shows you how rare it is that they are dominated in that way, the opposition generating 10 shots and Liverpool not having a single shot at goal. That is pretty remarkable, really. It was easily, I would say, the poorest half under Arne Slot, which, I mean, it's not saying a lot, because Liverpool have been magnificent having the under Arne Slot, so it's not a surprise that this goes down as the worst. But it just seemed like the poorest time for it to happen, with so much riding on it at the moment, and obviously Liverpool going for that Premier League title. But I have to say, look, obviously you look at that performance, you can be concerned about it and worried, particularly coming off the back of a kind of mixed performance against Everton. But I always think, and sometimes that context is key. I know the manager and his staff will be driven by assessing performances rather than results, because the two don't always match up, and the one thing you can control is your performance. But sometimes, and this is the same for anyone who analyses the game like we do and watches it, sometimes you've got to kind of let that stance slide and just realise how important it is to get 3 points on the board, because the context around this game was absolutely massive and important. And I think the starting point for that is that Liverpool had played in midweek against Everton, a ridiculously gruelling fixture, so physical in a really hostile atmosphere. They had to put an awful lot into that, didn't they? And so that has clearly had an effect, particularly as Wolves had a free week coming into that. So I think that was really, really important in the game, particularly the fact that Wolves come on so strong in the second half. You could see they'd had that extra rest, and that Liverpool had a really tricky appointment in midweek. And of course, you've got the other context is that Wolves are fighting for their lives at the bottom. They need to get every point they can to get themselves away from the relegation zone. I mean, on the basis of that performance, I definitely fancy them to get away from that. But of course, you need to pick up points when you're playing well, and you played well there. You were battling for the points, and very unfortunate not to get them. And I think you've also seen from them that I think 5 of the 8 wins that they've had all season have come in the last 10, so they are improving and they are getting better, and maybe their position in the table is not reflective of the recent performance level. So you've got to kind of throw that all in the mix. And of course, Liverpool having a penalty chalked off, which I think was the right decision, and similar with the offside goal as well, they were the right decisions. But the fine margins, those moments, aren't they? So for Liverpool, it was kind of just a combination of things coming together, really, that made this a really, really difficult game. And I think the key is really, in moments like that, if you're having a difficult afternoon, you've just got to fight, and you've got to get your way through, and you've got to make sure by hook or by crook you get a win on board. Because at the end of the day, Liverpool do not play poorly very often. They haven't played poorly very often at all this season. And so, you think about it from say an Arsenal fan watching this game. Liverpool are having a poor game. They're getting dominated by Wolves at Anfield. but in the end it doesn't matter because Liverpool come away with the 3 points. And I think if you're an Arsenal fan watching this game, you come away thinking, well, they're probably not going to play that poorly next week, are they? And therefore they're probably going to play better and get the points anyway. And so this poor performance didn't matter. And I think that's really how you've got to think about these things. Your rival fans will be kind of gutted that Liverpool have come away with the points anyway, probably not expecting that the poor performances are going to continue. And I don't think they will continue either. I think, as I say, there's several mitigating circumstances around this one, and I think sometimes in a title race you've really got to just kind of try your best to battle and fight your way through to the points, and that's very much what we saw from Liverpool today. And at the end of the day, you've got to kind of brush this one off now, forget about the performance level, try and play better in the games going forward, make the use of the fact that they are now, they get 3 points here, that puts them 7 points ahead in the Premier League. And of course it's a huge week coming up as well now for Liverpool. They can't afford to dwell on this one because it's straight into Villa away and then straight into City away as well, so they are absolutely huge games coming up, and I think Liverpool will have to perform much better than they did here, but I'll be honest, I think that they will. And I think this was a very specific kind of combination of circumstances that made Liverpool play poorly, and yet they came through with the 3 points regardless. Now, of course, I'm going to go through some individual performances. There's not a lot of standouts today because the performance in general wasn't fantastic, although I will say, just as a final note on the performance in general, Liverpool in the first half, I think they could create 1.6, 1.7 expected goals to Wolves 0.32. So in the end, if you take their two halves as two separate parts of the game, you've got to think that Liverpool did overall, when you add it all together, probably deserve the win just about, as much as that second half will stick in the memory. So it's not all poor, but in terms of picking out players who I think performed well, two of these players were involved in the second half, and I think both of them had a really key input into how the game turned out. And the first of those is going to be the guy who I think was the man of the match, actually, despite the fact he only comes on in the 71st minute, and that is Wataru Endo. What a professional this guy is. I mean, he's been in a really difficult position all season, struggling to get minutes, hasn't he? But every time he's been called on, he hasn't let Liverpool down at all. I think he was a perfect substitution from Arne Slot today. He needed someone to get in there, get some control, break up the game a little bit, and that is exactly what he got from Wataru Endo. I think Liverpool were much better when he was on the pitch. He was breaking it up. 3 out of 5 ground duels won, always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. 5 out of 5 passes completed, and of course that's not an awful lot of passes. He's not a volume passer, but what you needed him to do is, when he got it, keep it, and that is exactly what he did. He was doing the job that Liverpool needed to do. And I think almost the key statistic is the fact that Wolves have 10 shots in that second half, and only one of them comes in the 20 minutes after Wataru Endo comes onto the pitch, so he was absolutely doing his job. And there's another statistic I like from his performance as well, which is 2 fouls won, and those 2 fouls were absolutely crucial moments. One over in the corner that Conor Bradley almost takes his shirt off celebrating because he kind of relieves the pressure on Liverpool, and one just in front there as well. Really, really key moments to win those fouls and relieve the pressure on Liverpool, because the pressure was massive and they needed intelligence, they needed smartness, and that's what Endo was showing. And there's something that kind of summed up his performance for me, actually, and his intelligence as a footballer, which is just Wolves try and take a quick corner over there at the Kop end late in the second half, and he's the only one who switched on to it, gets out there to make sure that they can't take the short corner to slow them down. He's always switched on, he's always ready for moments like that, and I think that just summed up his performance again. And I do wonder whether Arne Slot, watching him break up the play here, watching the influence he had on it, whether he wishes he could go back and have his time again at Goodison Park and have brought him on there, because I think you wouldn't have had a free man at the back post, I think, in a situation like that with someone like Endo on the pitch, because his intelligence and ability to sniff out danger, I think, is something Liverpool maybe could have done within those final moments at Goodison Park, where they concede that kind of sickening equaliser. So as I say, for me, Endo, man of the match, despite only being on for 20 minutes. Absolutely brilliant performance, and I think that's something Liverpool should lean on again if they're in a similar situation, although of course I'm sure everyone who's watching this hopes that Liverpool don't find themselves in a similar situation between now and the end of the season. And just one more performance I want to highlight as well. I said in the second half, and it is of course Jarell Quansah. I mean, he comes in a tough situation, doesn't he? Obviously coming on for Canate, who's come so close to a second yellow card there. And you know, it's a tough situation to be thrown in, because Liverpool are absolutely dominating that second half, and yet I thought he did a really, really good job. I mean, for starters, as I say, being sensible with the ball, 27 passes out of 27 completed, and there's a couple of brave passes in there as well. He wasn't just playing 5-yarders, he was a couple of cross-field balls as well, but also the defensive side of his game as well. 2 clearances, 2 interceptions, and one of those interceptions, when you watch it back, just in front of the goal there for a certain tap-in, he somehow gets his foot round the corner, a telescopic leg to cut it out, and it is a certain goal that he prevents there. Absolutely superb. And I just wondered, watching Quansah in this half, is that I can't for the life of me understand why so many are so willing to write him off and seem to think that this kid's going to come to nothing. I mean, he's still so young. He's shown an unbelievably high level of performance given his age for a centre half, and I just think he showed again today. You know, it's not just that he's very good for his age; he's just very good. And I think, you know, he's had some moments this season where he's been a little bit out of rhythm, but you know, I think people are almost putting themselves in a situation where they want him sold, or they don't want him on the pitch at all because they want to sign someone who will take his minutes completely. I just don't get that at all. I think he's a fantastic talent. I think he was absolutely crucial to Liverpool winning in really difficult circumstances today, and so I think he should get an awful lot of praise for that, really. And so I'm going to wrap it up there really by saying that yes, not a sterling performance from Liverpool today, and it would be a worry if these kind of level of performances continue, but as I say, I don't expect it. I think it was a brilliant battling performance in that second half to see it through. Sometimes in a title race you're going to have to battle, you're going to have to fight to get the 3 points on board, and as I say, an Arsenal fan watching that will be sick to the stomach that Liverpool have played so poorly, and yet they find themselves 7 points behind in the Premier League table with not very many games left to go. They are running out of road. They've got to come to Anfield, and if Liverpool can get 2 wins from the next 2, I'm sure Arsenal will be absolutely running out of hope. So of course, for Liverpool, the job is now to rip into those 2 games, isn't it, against Aston Villa and Man City. I mean, if they win against Aston Villa in midweek, they will be 10 points clear, albeit having to play the game more, but that will change the dynamic, won't it? Put a little bit of pressure on Arsenal, a bit more pressure on Arsenal, really. So really, really good position that Liverpool find themselves in, and it's because of a combination of quality performances, but also a little bit of grit like we saw today. So this side looks to me like it's got a little bit of everything. So do let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think about that second half performance? It wasn't fantastic, was it? But great battling qualities from the player. Do let me know your thoughts, and as usual, if you can like the video, always massively appreciate that. And if you're new to the channel, please do jump on board. We're getting new subscribers all the time, so I really appreciate everyone who's recently joined up. And I'm going to wrap it up there because the lawnmowers are killing me like they always do. So see you guys very, very soon.